How are you, folks? Welcome back, episode 117. It's been a while. It's probably been a week or two since we've done a podcast. I think the last one, it's been at least a week or so. Took a week, headed out to Alberta. I was out there for a wedding and just got back. So now I have 2 weeks of quarantine and 2 weeks of really great podcasts. So let's get into it. Again, this episode is sponsored by our friends at Maritime Madness. Check them out at maritimemadness.com. Over 30 different flavors of hot sauces. Use the code FLA10, save and receive free shipping over $35. Get that spice in your life. You can steal that, Maritime Madness. All right, folks. Again, a fantastic episode lined up here today. Really excited. So this guy, if anybody knows anything about social media, you obviously follow this guy, especially if you're a martial arts fan. His name's Rob, but more importantly, he runs the McDojo Life podcast, social media, documentary upcoming. This guy's kind of all over the map with what he does and does it very, very well. I'm all about this kind of stuff where, I'll let him kind of get into it a little bit more, but he's a guy who's been involved in the community for a hell of a long time, and he's doing fantastic things. And I really love it because he does a daily show, pretty much daily, and brings on a lot of different people, and just the conversation, that he has with a lot of different people, the dialogue. And not scared to kind of bring up hard topics, not scared to cover hard topics, not scared to call people out, which in this day and age is really kind of hard to come by. So I really like that. He's a real dude and straight to the point. So without further ado, Mr. Rob, how are you, buddy?
What up, man? Thank you for having me on the show, man. I appreciate it. Always love talking shop.
Yes, I know. That's it, man. That's again, I've been following you for quite a while, but that's again why I wanted to bring you on. It kind of motivates me. I look up to people who we don't have conversations in the world anymore. People don't want to talk, and when someone calls them out, they get shy, it's like, oh, that person's rude to me. But it's important to call people out in this day and age and just have hard conversations,
Well, I just think it's important to have open dialogue. It's fine to disagree with people. I think we're in a day and age where people grow up on computer screens. And so as they're growing up, they realize that there's some anonymity there. They can hide behind the screen and they don't have to worry about repercussions. And so they say the most nasty and vile things behind the screen. But then when it comes down to meeting a person in real life, they don't realize that they're programming themselves to be that way everywhere. And so I think that that's why we're getting people who were just so mean and nasty to each other all the time. And I figured, if I'm going to take this job that I have, where I'm trying to make sure that we keep the martial arts legitimate and away from frauds and phonies, that I need to put myself on the chopping block as often as possible to have my ideals and my ideas and my thoughts put up to the test with other people's ideals and thoughts. And I'm willing to have my mind changed. So I might learn something by having these amazing open dialogue conversations. I think it's important.
It's huge. It's huge. It's exactly what you said. It's open dialogue, and you might learn something, which is what gives me goosebumps, because that's so true. We look at our business every single day. We're we run an MMA promotion and a podcast like every other goddamn person in the world, right? So if we can't learn, we're learning every day. We have no idea what we're doing, so we have to learn from people like you or people who run promotions or whatever, right? And it's almost like checking yourself, just kind of when people call you out, it's important to be like, not always am I right.
Yeah, of course. That would be weird, right? And if you're surrounded by nothing but people who agree with you all the time, you're surrounded by the wrong people.
That's a cult.
You're surrounded by people who basically are just waiting for you to fail. They don't know it yet, but they're waiting for you to fail. They're riding the wave of success, and they're just going to be yes men to you. Oh, awesome job, good job. But then when you make a mistake, they're going to say the same thing, and that's a problem. You need people in your life that'll go, hey, man, I'm not going to be a dick about this, but I just want you to know that I think that this was a mistake. And you go, oh, okay. Not people who are just going to name call or point fingers, but people who are really going to give you some legitimate criticisms and go, okay, well, I need to look at that and go, well, maybe I can fix that. Maybe I can make it better. I actually had that happen the other day. I posted someone up on my page.
Yeah.
And then somebody did a rebuttal on TikTok. And they were like, I don't think that you're right because of all these reasons. And I was like, oh, well, why don't you come on live with me and let's talk in front of everybody, so that way it's not edited or chopped up, and then we can have an open dialogue. And it was kind of didn't go very far, but at least we had the opportunity to have that dialogue without it being like name calling or bashing. I think it went really well.
Yeah, that's so important in this day and age, man. Like with the whole name calling and bashing thing, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of the bully mentality myself. You know, it's coming from a martial arts background. It's just like, well, I'm just gonna punch you in the fucking mouth. Like that's how I am. But you know, yourself, like how did this all get started for you, Rob? Like you know, you're down in Florida. Did you know? Again, you have millions of followers around the world. When it comes to total views and everything, like how did it all kind of take off for you and get started?
Well, I mean, I've been in the martial arts for 23 years. So I started when I was 12. So it's been something that I've been doing pretty much the majority of my life. And then I was a blue belt, one stripe blue belt or so when I was at the academy that I train at. And I was working the desk at the time. And my instructor called in and he was like, hey, man, just let you know, I don't feel very well today. Will you do me a favor, cover the noon class? I was like, not a problem, man. So I taught a few techniques, we rolled. And then after that, everybody just kind of stood around. We were shooting the crap. And then one of the new guys, he had only taken martial arts like maybe 2 times in his entire life. And everyone left and he stayed behind. And he was like, hey, man, when you guys were talking, y'all brought up something called the McDojo. Can you kind of explain what that is to me? And I kind of gave him my version rundown of what I thought a McDojo was at the time. And he looked at me and he goes, how come no one does anything about that? And I was like, I don't know. I don't know why no one does anything about that. And so that's something that echoed in my head pretty much for the rest of the night. So I got up the next morning and I started McDojo life. And it used to be way different. It was long diatribes. Like I'd write these long paragraph versions of things. And now it's changed into more like I want people to think for themselves. I don't want to do everything and then no one has anything to retort or rebuttal because I did everything for them. I'd rather people think for themselves and make their own decisions.
It makes sense. Totally makes a lot of sense, actually, because it probably helps the content as well. Really.
Well, I mean, content never runs out, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw your latest story, but it's important, man. It's super important because we all know anybody who's involved in this sport or martial arts in general, there's tons of that kind of shit happens and never stops, and it's going to continue stopping. So I commend you, man. I think it's super important.
Well, I appreciate it, man. I just doing my thing. Like one day I was a martial arts instructor, and the next thing you know, like overnight, I wind up kind of doing this for a living. I like made a decision once I hit about 50,000 followers or so. I was like, I think I might have something here. And then when it hit 100,000, I was like, okay, I do have something here. What do you do with it? And how do you keep it so that way it's not self-destructive? Because the martial arts is very self-destructive. Like the community itself is very vile. I don't think that a lot of people outside of the martial arts realize what it's like inside.
Yeah.
Like on the outside, you look at it and it's preached as honor and integrity and respect. But then when you get to even the upper echelon of coaches, it's nothing like that. Mm-hmm. It's a bunch of people talking about how they're better than everyone else. And they do it all the time, 24 hours a day. And that's toxic. It's not a good environment. It's not healthy. And I realized that honestly earlier this year. I really realized how bad it was because I went to a thing called SHOT Show. And SHOT Show is like the biggest gun expo there is in the United States. It's huge. Okay. Yeah. It takes place over a week. It's in like this beautiful hotel. You have to go like 2 stories. It's like 2 floors of just like nothing but booths. It would literally take you a whole entire day just to walk the entire floor. Wow. That's if you didn't stop. And so when I looked around, I had this moment and I was like, the gun industry has not been around as long as the martial arts industry. It has. Martial arts has been around a lot longer than guns have.
Certainly.
The gun thing instead of ever learning martial arts.
Yeah.
Like when I looked around and I realized one thing that the martial arts is missing. At the Martial Arts Super Show, which is the big expo for martial arts, it takes you maybe 10 minutes to walk around that entire place. 10 minutes, easy. Even if I decided to stop. There are a lot of seminars and there's a lot of like conversations, but there's not a lot of like actual businesses that are represented there. And so when I looked around, I realized I was like, well, the gun industry has only been around for this long and they are huge. And then the martial arts industry has been around for way longer and they're so small. It's a lot smaller than people expect. Why? And it's because the gun industry has one goal, 2A rights. The gun industry is heading towards one direction as a team. Whether they have infighting or not, they are willing to put that aside for the moment just to make sure that they can continue to exist. Martial arts doesn't have that. Martial arts does not have that universal, we want to progress martial arts. They only have, we want to progress our art, and we can give a fuck less about everybody else. And that's toxic.
It's funny because I speak a lot of the same, because it's like a fighters union. Like, you're always like, right now, this whole COVID thing, in my opinion, has actually hurt fighters more than it's helped, because now, like, the pay grade is going to get worse. I think, truthfully, like, you're always going to have people who are willing to fight for nothing, or fight for like $500 to get to that next level. And it's like, you could come together and be like, no, we deserve this amount, especially right now. Right. But I don't know if it's like you say, I want to build my team and I want to get there instead of a whole.
I think another problem is a stigma. So there's a big stigma in the martial arts. It's kind of a problem. It kind of opens up the door when fighting has become more popular now. But for the longest time, if you were financially successful in the martial arts, no matter how you did it, you were considered a McDojo. Like, if you ran a great school and you were getting paid very well, there'd be somebody across the street going, they're just giving away belts. They don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Why? Financially successful. And so because of that mentality, a lot of guys who were coming up, not necessarily just fighters, but guys who were coming up who want to be coaches, who want to teacher, who want to open up their own studio, they have this mentality going in that, okay, well, I want to keep integrity. So I'm not going to learn anything about the business side. I'll just teach on the mat. And that's the most asinine thought you could ever have in terms of running a business, is to say, I will ignore the business. And so I see so many great martial artists who put the money on the back burner for integrity purposes, not knowing that it's really just really, really dumb business sense. And then their business is closed within a year or two. And it's like, I can make the world's greatest pizza, the best pizza on the planet. I cook it in my oven. I set it on my countertop. And if I stare at it, I will be the only one that knows that is great. Even if I have the best. Well, technique is the same thing. If you could have the best class in the entire world, you could be the best coach. No one gives two turtle shits how good your class is if your gym smells, if you're not paying your instructors, if you're not there on time, if you don't welcome guests, if you're not doing follow-up phone calls, if you're not checking on your retention. I could do that list forever. And most martial artists, if I ask them, what's your retention rate? They would go, what's that?
Yeah. It's interesting. It's all that stuff is like basic business things, especially even like, I'm shocked that and here it's different. You know, I will say we're in a really small area here. We have like probably 25 schools maybe up here. But regardless, if you're running, like, to me, like, the more organized you are, the better your business is going to become, I think, right? At the end of the day. So if your back end is super tight and you're forecasting things and you're like, here's my eventual goal, you know, that's exactly where you want to be. And but you know, it's everybody's different, I guess. But how do you survive in a big city when there's 4 academies in your city and you're not doing those things? Right?
Yeah,
like,
it's just not smart. Or even you were talking about like fighting, you know, like even fighters coming up are just signing contracts without thinking twice. And then even the highest level fighters are signing their contracts and then wanting to go back and renege on those contracts. They don't feel fair. If you didn't feel it was fair, don't sign the contract. That's how you screw yourself and literally everyone else. If you're at the upper echelon and you're making agreements to lesser money, that means that everybody else is going to make lesser money under you. No one's going to give the lower guys as much as you. And no one's going to raise up their pay grade if the upper guys are still accepting lower pay. So if they raise their standards, then everybody else has to raise their standards. You know, it's ridiculous what fighters will allow themselves to do, simply because, again, that mentality of all I need to do is be good at this. And that's not true in any sport. In no sport whatsoever. If Michael Jordan would have signed a contract for Converse instead of Nike, things would be way different than they are. You know, maybe that deal would have failed. Maybe Nike wouldn't have been able to, or Converse wouldn't have been able to market him as well as Nike did, you know, which now I think Nike bought out Converse. But in any case, you know, marketing is an important side of a fighter's life and job and career. There are so many fighters who go, I just beat him up. All right, cool. Now what?
Exactly.
Followers on your social media. How many people are really showing up to watch you fight, no matter how good you are? You might make a good highlight reel, but are you marketable? Because if you're not, no one's going to pay you.
That's the thing, right? Like I always, it comes down to return for me as a promoter. Like it's how many tickets are you going to sell me? Period. Like it's at the end of the day, like you want this amount of money versus, okay, well, here's how much that you should be selling. If you're demanding this amount of money, this is how much you should be selling. And also you should be on social media promoting yourself properly, like not talking shit. Well, you can talk shit, don't get me wrong, but in a respectful kind of way, right? But I guess if that makes any sense. But hold yourself accountable and be like, we like good role model kind of people here, and that's kind of what we lead by a good example, right?
Yeah, or just understand that there are more reasons than just fights that people show up to watch you. Some people will show up to support you no matter what happens. Win, lose, or draw, they're only there to support you. They could care less how good of a fighter you are, right? And that sells some tickets, right? And some people are able to get by on that and do fairly well in their careers. Like, for instance, I think Clay Guida was one of those guys who was a draw. And his fight record wasn't great. I mean, he wasn't towards the tail end. I mean, he was losing almost every fight he was getting into, and I'm not sitting here being, so there's going to be some statistician on here watching going, well, statistically, man, like I'm just saying, like, dude, he just wasn't an upper echelon guy like that, but he was entertaining and people wanted to watch him to support him, whether he won or lost. And that's a draw for some people. Yeah. Other people, they have to play a heel. Like Colby Covington right now, it's not even a question if that guy's playing a character. He's playing a character because he wants you to not like him, because if you don't like him, you will pay to watch him fight, to watch him lose. Mayweather did the same thing. He played the heel so that way you wanted to watch him lose, and he wouldn't, and then that pissed you off more to make you want to watch again. So,
which is smart. That's good stuff if you can play it, and if you can actually like follow through with it too and back it up and take the fights. And Colby, it's interesting what he's doing right now. I don't know if I am a fan of his fighting style, just of his pace, but it's cringeworthy, man. Sometimes it's cringeworthy for sure.
Well, he's a good fighter, man. Like, you can't take that away from him. Obviously, where he's leveled himself at and where he is in the UFC right now, he's good. He's earned his spot there. But like, I think he's one of those people that just hasn't quite figured out how to play the role that he set himself up for. Or if you look at like a McGregor, I think that people like that, when they're playing the heel or they're being loud like that, they're just basically pushing out a version of themselves. They're just hyping that version of themselves up more. Like Chael Sonnen, I think, probably does it better than anybody else I've ever seen do it in the game. Because he's incredible. Chael Sonnen has a very specific pace and tone and tempo and way that he speaks. And when he gets in front of a presser, man, nobody handles it like he does. He just takes that little part of his personality and he projects it out onto the other person and just verbally murders people before he ever gets into the ring with them. So even if he loses the fight, he is definitely made fun of you enough.
But Colby's got that's the thing. Colby's not natural like that. Even though he's selling, it's a character. It's not as natural like Chael, like you say. It rolls off the tongue so nicely. I found Conor was very similar like that, even though it was a little not as good as Chael, obviously. But some of the things he would say, you're just like, wow. And his accent and his bravado, everything, like it all went together perfectly, I gotta say.
Yeah, I really wish younger fighters coming up. Like, I think one thing that younger fighters who are about to turn pro do really well now that I've noticed is they start to try to get management or representation to help them. I think that that's really smart because it shows that they understand that there's a part of this they don't know. And so rather than just trying to figure it out as they go, they actually are taking someone else's advice who's been there and done that and letting them kind of guide them in a way to help them. Now, of course, it's not free, but at the same time, like, nothing's free. You might not ever make it without certain things. Like, if you watch Dana White, his show is like Looking for a Fight. Yeah. I think that's the name of it. Yeah. But when he goes and he's looking for particular fighters, I think fighters in their head think that the only thing that he's looking for is the skill. He's looking just like any other talent agent. He's looking for something that's going to make you stand out. Mm-hmm. And I watched this thing. It was a documentary about modeling. And it was a lady who ran a modeling agency. And she said, I can find attractive people anywhere in the world. She goes, I don't want you to just be attractive. I want you to have something that is unique that no one else has in the world. So this modeling agency would hire people who had like a gap in their teeth. They would be beautiful, but that gap would make them stand out above all the other supermodels.
Very
Or they had
smart.
freckles. They'd be like, hey, that's the one I want. Because what would happen is you would put a face with a brand then. Oh, isn't that freckle lady from that commercial? And then you automatically associate that with the brand. If it's just some generic attractive person, you're not going to remember how to associate them. Didn't I see them in a movie? And you might get it wrong. And so fighting is very similar. If I say style bender, you automatically know who that is. You automatically know his real name. You automatically know how he fights. You automatically know a lot about that dude, and you know what promotion he's with. And so that's important when building a brand is, as fighters or as promoters, you need to get fighters who are going to basically stand out for your brand, even if they're not the greatest fighter in the world. You can get somebody who's going to draw people, and that's somebody you're going to be loyal to because they're going to reciprocate that back to your brand.
Yeah, very true. We got any of you fighters out there in the Maritimes listening? This is great advice. Great advice. I couldn't agree more. And we have lots of characters out here. I got to say, we're kind of lucky out here in the Maritimes. So if you're down in Florida, if you're not familiar with the Maritimes, you've probably never been up here to Atlantic, Canada. Nova Scotia.
No, I haven't been to Canada. No.
Well, if you came up the East Coast and you went right above Maine, we're just kind of up above Maine to the right, like Nova Scotia, Newfoundland area. And so we're allowed to do fights very soon. We're doing a grappling event here, but we're also allowed to go back and do MMA again here soon. But it's only fighters within the Maritime, the 4 provinces. So it should be some interesting rivalries we'll be putting on for the next year.
That's a Canadian accent I'm hearing.
That's a Canadian accent.
Oh,
yes, sir. Okay, on the east coast of Canada. Yeah. So, well, I want to talk to you. Well, it's interesting. I guess since I'm up in Canada, let's talk about guns real quick. Up here in Canada, we don't really like. I shouldn't say we don't. I don't. But I have lots of buddies who hunt and stuff, and you can't open carry. You can't do any of that kind of stuff up here. But there's lots of shotguns and stuff. They recently tried to take it. I think they did make it illegal after this whole COVID thing. They made it illegal to own like even an AR-15. I think it is.
Oh wow!
Yeah, So it's interesting how the rules are so different. Like, how's everybody down there with the COVID, and how's everybody handling the whole situation? Florida's pretty much been open the whole time, I think. Eh?
Well, we actually only last week our governor had announced, it may have even been earlier this week, maybe the weekend or something like that, but it was only within the last week or so where the governor has said, hey, Florida's back to being open, but he's leaving it up to city to make their own decisions about how they want to open. And so where I am, unfortunately, we still have to wear masks indoors. I just never understood a lot of the logic behind all of it. It just seems very flawed. Like, for instance, if I walk into a restaurant, I have to wear a mask in the lobby, but when I sit down, I don't have to wear a mask.
I know.
Is it not going to follow me in here? Is it going to stop and wait to be seated to like the infect me? Is that what's up? Or like, you're required to wear a mask, which basically just states that you have to cover your face and your mouth, which means I can do this and that's it. Yeah. Cover my face and my mouth with a shirt. They didn't tell you what type of anything to wear. They didn't give you any standards. Like, I see people walking around with the stupidest shit on their face. And it's like that medically doesn't do anything, but by law, that's they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. And a lot of it's very strange to me how, like you were talking about firearms earlier. So just to kind of wrap back to that, I don't personally like to go hunting. I'm not a big hunter. I don't do that. Right. I like to learn about firearms. I like to learn about how to shoot. I like to go to a range. I enjoy all of that. I enjoy tactical shooting. I think that's really fun. But I just never was one of those guys that was just like happy to go out and go hunting. It's just never my thing. Right. But when it comes to like guns, I've always been a big supporter of firearms, mostly because I've taught for years. I mean, like shit, like I said, I've been in this for 23 years. And over the years, if you're an instructor, you start to realize and see patterns in people. You see people who have like cerebral palsy, or you see people who have mental disorders, or you see people who have physical disabilities or injuries that prevent them from being able to do things the way you would do them. And I think a lot of people who are not pro-gun, and I'm not saying this is 100% the reason why, I'm sure there's a million reasons why, but a lot of people tend to think that a gun for self-defense is ridiculous because they are able-bodied. But when I've taught people who had cerebral palsy, I don't care how many classes you take, you will not physically be able to protect yourself against an able-bodied person that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to be rude and I don't want to make fun of them, but I want to tell them the truth. The reason they joined martial arts isn't the reason that you're doing it. And so they do want to learn personal protection, but there's that moment of realization where they go, fuck, I'm not here for martial arts at all.
Mhm.
Like, we had a guy, he came in, had cerebral palsy. He had the arm crutches and he couldn't really stand on his own without them. He'd walk out onto the mat when we would line up and he would try to stand in line with all of us. But every time he'd fall to his knees, every time. And I told him, I was like, hey, dude, you can start on your knees. He goes, no, I'm going to try to stand. And by the time he got his blue belt, it was like 2 years later, like a year and a half, 2 years later, he was able to walk onto the mat, stand on his own, walk up, accept the belt, and walk back and stand on his own.
Very
That
impressive.
was his accomplishment. Would he ever be able to go toe-to-toe with another person who didn't have cerebral palsy? Probably not. But for him, I would recommend him get a firearm. I'd recommend him get a knife because you would need that equalizer in order to survive, you know? But, everybody joins martial arts for different reasons.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like for me, like I've never held a gun ever in my life. So that's how naive I am. But I'm a black belt in jiu-jitsu, and I look at it like, well, I still probably like I kind of look at like the whole Anthony Smith thing that just happened recently, and I'm like, man, if that's the kind of stuff I think about when if I'm gonna wake up in the middle of the night, if someone's coming in my house, it's like if Anthony Smith couldn't kick the shit out of that guy, the chances of me doing it are not good, right? So it's like I think the more protection, the better. I'm not against firearms in any way, shape, or form. I'm just not exactly confident, because I haven't been around them. So, but I think they certainly have a place, man, in protection and whatever it is, a hobby. Like if everybody's like, you can't be going up here like telling everybody, taking their guns away. It's kind of crazy, man.
Like for instance, just the ones behind me, right? Like the one on the bottom. Oh shit! Sorry, the camera's backwards. The one on the bottom was given to me by my stepfather. My stepfather was really big into hunting. Well, he has Alzheimer's right now, so he doesn't even know who I am. So for me, I'll never shoot that gun again.
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna just sit there because it means something to me. So if somebody were like, yo, we're going to take that, I'd be like, fuck you.
Yeah, exactly.
It has nothing to do with shooting people. This is something sentimental to me that means something to me. The one above it is a company that sponsors me. And that's just soda cans, dude. It just happens to be on an AR-15 frame. This thing literally shoots soda cans and rubber balls, right?
Wow.
But from our law, that's technically a firearm because of the lower receiver. So like if I were to just buy the barrel, that's fine. Yeah. If I buy a lower receiver, that's a firearm.
Illegal. Wow.
Illegal. Well, not illegal, but if it was fully auto, it'd be illegal. But if it came down to a firearm being illegal, the soda can launcher would technically be called illegal at that point, right? And so, and then I have my AR-15, right? And so I have a couple more ARs and I have a couple more guns, but like I'm just finished my office, so I still got to get them hung up. But like the idea to me isn't necessarily like to go out and hunt and things like that. I mean, the idea for me is the what ifs. And I'm a big what if guy. Why do I train martial arts? Because if I ever needed it, I would have it, right? Same thing with a firearm. Like I see all these people who are going through life right now in all the riots and things like that. And I see people who are like going and burning people's homes down and burning people's businesses down. Like if there's a mob of 50 people outside, I'd much rather have that with me than not have it.
That's the thing, man. That's exactly it. Like I have a lot of what ifs too. I question that kind of, I'm up here in rural random Nova Scotia, but I say that, but then there was the biggest mass attack in Canada. It happened here like in March. This guy, you probably didn't hear about it, but this guy basically in the middle of the night he was dressed as a cop and he went around and started just pulling people over and went to their house and he killed like 23 people. And then himself, he had like a replica cop car. He was dressed as a cop and all this crazy shit. Like, so this kind of stuff can happen anywhere. There's crazy people everywhere.
Yeah, it's a shame though, man. Like, in all honesty, like my personal opinion is I wish guns never did get invented. But unfortunately, they did get invented. And since they did become invented, you can't uninvent them.
Yeah.
Like, so like, what are we going to, okay. So you're basically just saying like, whenever you start doing like heavy restrictions, all you're really saying is you can't have them, but I can. It's like, well, why do you get them? If they're so bad, why do you get to have them? Oh, well, we're protecting you.
Because I'm rich.
If I have my own, I can protect myself. I'm good.
Yeah. Well, that's it, right?
I didn't get a chance to read what that popped up on the screen.
Oh, where did you say? Oh, that's Jason, I think. Jason Delory.
Being hunters, they can totally be family heirlooms. Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Jason. That's what I'm talking about. Man, it's more than just shooting things and people.
We bring up the positive comments always.
I'm sure there are negative ones too.
What I guess we'll get off the whole guns topic here. Do you think fighting will go back? What's your whole outlook on this? Like, I personally, I don't know if fighting is going to go back to the way it was, where fighters are going to be traveling all over the world once again, like UFC, yes, that kind of level. But I don't know if regionally, I don't know if the sport's going to get back to there. What do you think?
It'll eventually get back to there. I mean, like, I like to always put things up to like a comparison. So what do we compare this to? Well, I guess the closest thing we can really compare it to is like the flu, right? The flu in the United States is one of the top 10 killers every year. Feel free to look up that, because that's a real stat. So like the flu every year is one of the top 10 killers, right? We got heart disease, we got car accidents, we got the flu, right? And so every year when the flu season comes around, we don't shut down businesses. We don't tell people to wear a mask. It's like, fuck them.
Yeah.
And we have a vaccine for that, but we don't have one for COVID. And so what kills me is like when flu season has come around, like it does every year, none of this shit happens the way that it's happened. And people go, oh, well, it's different. It's more dangerous. And statistically this year, like flu will still kill more people than COVID will. And so even with a vaccine. And so when I'm looking at it, I'm not saying that it's not dangerous, but what I am saying is that what's happening now is kind of unprecedented in how people are handling this. It's different and it's very odd, and it doesn't seem to have a real baseline of a standard. For instance, in California, if you walk outside, you're supposed to wear a mask. That's what they're telling people in California. You walk outside, you're supposed to wear a mask. Now, a lot of people aren't doing that, but that's what you're supposed to do. Gyms and businesses are shut down over there. Meanwhile, the damn thing's on fire. All kinds of bad things happen in California. People are leaving, right? Kind of sucks to be over there. But then in Georgia, they made it so that way it is illegal to tell people they have to wear masks. And then in Florida, I don't have to wear a mask when I'm outside, but if I walk inside a business, I have to wear a mask. And so it's very confusing as to like, if this is like treated like something serious, you would figure there would be a universal standard. This is the mask you have to wear. You have to wear this kind of mask. We will make sure that we get one to you. So you like, what kills me is we were able to give a stimulus check to us, right? So they gave us like a couple $1,000s a piece. They were like, here's the economic stimulus. Here's some money, right? You could afford to do that, but you couldn't ship us a mask that would save our lives. Like it's hard to get money when I'm fucking dead. I just don't understand the standard. That's all. And so it makes it very confusing. It's like, well, what's the standard? Like, you're on this coast. You just happen to be in Canada.
Yeah. Same thing though. Like we have to wear a mask when we go in anywhere. It's same, you have to wear a mask while you go in the restaurant, and then when you sit down, you take it off. Same.
Yeah. It's just all very confusing, and I'm one of those people where I like to look at both sides to try to understand the problem so I can make my own educated decision. And I just look at the numbers and I just look at the standard. And the standard is there is no standard in the United States. You have to treat it state by state. And then I look at, okay, well, what are each state doing and what seems to be the universal standard? And universally, it seems that most places just require you to wear a mask when you go inside. But how long you have to wear the mask, what places of the building you have to wear the mask, that's way different. Like,
do you have to wash the mask?
Yeah. Like, and I have a palate, which sucks. So I happen to fall into one of those categories where I have a breathing impairment. And so I don't have to wear the damn thing. Yeah. But in order for me not to get into an argument every 30 feet, I put it on and then I have to take it off to breathe again. So I basically, anytime I'm going out into the public, I feel like I'm waterboarding myself or suffocating because I'm walking out into public with a breathing impairment. And I walk out and I'm like, fuck, this sucks. This sucks so bad. The first jiu-jitsu class, because I took a little time off when COVID hit and gyms were closed. Then gyms opened back up in Florida. I was like, yeah, I'm going to go back and train. And so I put on my mask, and unfortunately I had to wear a mask when I was training. And like, you've never done, like, let's say an hour and a half, 2 hours of a class. You know, you do your warm ups, you got a little mist, a little sweat.
Yeah.
Off. Then after you're done with your warm up, all right, let's drill. Now you start to do some like Toriando passes, getting warmed up. All right, cool. A couple sweeps, a couple throws. All right, feeling good. Now you should be in a pretty good sweat. Your mask is also in that good sweat. And so now I'm trying to breathe through this damn mask, like, please stop. And I'm already out of shape. Like, I took all that time off. Like,
how do you
breathe any damn way? So,
and everybody kept the mask on for real? Do you guys keep the mask on still? Or everybody cheat?
We did for that entire class, and then a week later, my instructor was like, "Fuck it, we're just not." Gonna
yeah, exactly, man. Like, yeah, fuck. There's no way you can do that with a mask on. Like, that's old Wagner Rocher. Just now you put the hand over the mask. You guys down in Florida, it's interesting because that they say that, but the UFC, like I've seen like MMA events go on with fans and nobody wearing a mask in Florida.
You know, so I'm gonna toss out my own opinion, and I know people are gonna disagree, but I don't care. That's the beauty of open discourse.
Yeah, exactly it.
You know, I feel, and this is kind of a little bit of a George Carlin thing, but it's very true, and it's something that rings true to me, is that we don't really have rights, we have privileges. And so you feel like you have rights, but the truth is that you really don't. You just have privileges that are given to you. So like, we feel like we have the right in the United States to open up a business. You don't, because that can be taken away from you. Right? Which happened to a lot of people. A lot of businesses closed, right? You feel like you have the right to say whatever it is that you want to say. You don't. Because if you say the wrong thing at the wrong time to the wrong person, and then the wrong person hears it, they can take away your entire life.
Yeah.
So you don't have that right. You have a privilege. And so I feel like we only do have two basic human rights. I think we get to choose how we're going to live, and we get to choose how we're going to die. That is it. Right? Now, you might make the decision and it might get you in trouble, but you still have that right. If I want to go outside and take a crap on the sidewalk while singing the national anthem, I can do that. Now, will I get in trouble for that? Probably, but I had the right to be able to do that. Now, after that, I might have made a decision of how I'm going to live the rest of my life, which might be somewhere in jail if a kid walked by, right?
Yeah.
I also have the decision to choose how I want to die. If I want to make a decision to walk outside, jump in front of a city bus, and that's it, I can do that. I can do that. I can just go. If I want to dive off a cliff head first, I can do that. If I want to hang myself, if I want to die going out to a gym and trying to be healthy and better my life, and I happen to catch that and it kills me, I made that decision to do so. I personally don't think that you should shut down businesses and take away other people's personal accountability. If people want to open up their businesses and no one decides to go to that business, at least they have the opportunity to try.
Yeah.
You know, and people are like, oh, well, what about people who have pre-existing conditions? Use your common sense. If you know that you are around people who will have pre-existing conditions or people who are more predisposed to being killed by COVID, then you should be an adult and make the adult decision to not be around other people to help the people in need that you know. If you aren't like that and you're single and there's no one else in your life and the only people you are going to see are people in the gym, you are both making the same decision to take that risk. You should be able to have that right to do so. But when you basically say, no, you're just not going to be able to. Why not? Because fuck you. That's why.
Yeah, pretty well. And that's it.
It's like a parent telling you because I said so. It's like, all right, well, we're adults now, so you can tell me a reason. You know?
Yeah. Well, the epidemiology says so. That's why. You know, up here. So another thing, we got. I love all that logic. By the way, I think it's exactly money hit the head. I don't know what I'm fucking trying to say there. Hit the money on. I don't know what I'm trying to say.
Hit the money on the nail is what we did.
Yeah, we'll say hit the money on the nail. But up here. So if you come to the Maritimes, we have it one further. So you have to do a 2-week quarantine. So that's what I'm in right now. So I just got back from I didn't even leave our country. I stayed in the country. I went to a different state province and flew back. And now I have to stay in my house for 2 weeks. But we also have to wear masks. So we have like one case here. But the way I look at it is like, if I'm have to wear a mask everywhere, open up the country. Or if you're keeping us closed, we have no cases, then don't make me wear a mask. It's counterproductive to me. Like, well,
Did they even tell you what kind of mask you had to wear, or were they
no, just disposable mask, same as you, like, same whatever. Here, this just any kind of mask, but not a scarf, not one of these like things. Like all of a sudden, those are different. I don't know what they are. They say those aren't acceptable. Do you know which one? They're ones that like people were selling with logos on them and stuff. But it's not mandatory. So who's gonna tell you can't? Like,
yes, it's a very odd time to live, to be honest. Like, especially as martial artists. Like, and what I've noticed, and I was doing free seminars, and I'm still been doing this. I've been doing free online seminars for people who have had hard times financially with their martial arts studio. I've been doing business consulting for a decade. I like helping martial arts studios out. And so I've been doing it for them for free to help them get over this hump, because a lot of people weren't prepared. They didn't have a rainy day fund set aside. They weren't prepared to do a lot of things online. They weren't prepared to go, okay, well, how do we get around this? And they just weren't financially savvy. They just weren't ready. And then when this hit, I mean, so many people got either shut down or closed. And I hate saying that, because I want to see the industry grow, and it can't grow if they're not open. So, like,
you got that right. It's so sad, man.
It's super sad, and I hate seeing good businesses shut down because they just simply weren't financially ready. It's very, very, very sad to see.
Yeah, I know. Like, we've had probably 2 or 3 clubs kind of close here. And I just saw a big club in Ontario yesterday, Parabellum, which is a large MMA club. They, a lot of the, very talented pro and amateurs out of the Ontario scene train there. And like, they've been open for probably 10 years now, and they just shut down because I think they kept it open for like 6 months without being open. And then they finally got the green light to open again. And now, of course, they're in a second wave, so they shut them back down again. So they're like, we tried 8 months, so now they'll come back in a different location, I guess. But it's hard.
Yeah, like, I think that I really do just think that if some of those people just had a little bit more business sense, this wouldn't be as bad as they think. So, like, give you free advice here. So, like, out there, right, every summer, no matter where your martial arts gym is, retention rates drop. Retention rates drop during the summertime. That's because you're going to have less kids there because they're going on vacation. You're going to have less kids there unless you do a summer camp. You're going to have less adults there because they're free for a little bit of time. They got to watch their kids. No matter what, your retention rate's going to drop during the summertime. So you have to make supplementary classes and do supplementary events or tournaments or summer camps or something to supplement that income, or like a 3-month boot camp, something to be able to make up for that income. And if you don't know or aren't aware of that drop off, when summer hits, you're always going to be like, what happened? We don't get it. It happens every year. It's nothing new. Be prepared. And so what I saw was businesses were closing within the first month of lockdowns. And what that showed me was they weren't prepared for summer. If they weren't prepared for at least 3 months with a game year, they damn sure weren't going to make it through their summer. They were probably going to close anyway. So, like, a couple things that were really easy to do that I didn't see very many people do is they were going, okay, well, we're just closing our business. Why? Why aren't you offering online classes? And I know, as the guy who runs McDojo, like, people are like, oh, online class. They're not as good, but they keep you afloat. No one can take the seminar or the class from the guy who's living in the cardboard box. You got to do what you got to do to survive to get to the next port. What did people do with their contracts? People just were like, well, you can cancel if you want. That's fucking dumb. That's a piece of a contract. Or you can say, hey, how about this? If you pay us in full now during this time, I'll give you half off for the rest of your life with us. If you help us weather this storm. And the people who are loyal will show their loyalty by doing it.
Yeah, certainly.
And then you can give them the other option. You say, or you can pay half now because we understand we don't have a physical facility to go to, continue the online training, continue the supplemental classes that we're offering you. And then when things go back to normal, we'll just go back to normal payments when we open the doors back. But that works with your client. That works with your customer to make sure that you can ease and weather the storm. But a lot of people were just like, fuck it, we're closed. Like, did you even give a fuck to begin with? Did you really even care enough? Like, it's a technique just like any other technique. All this was somebody laid on their back and pulled guard financially.
Yeah.
What are you going to do about it? Oh, God, I fell in the guard. Oh, no, I'm just going to lay there. Oh, God, you guillotine choked me. Well, why the fuck didn't you try to pass or leg lock or anything other than what you're doing? You know?
That's interesting because I did see a shit ton of clubs close, and it's interesting to kind of think about that because here I didn't see a lot of online classes here either. So it's interesting. I wonder if it varied from area to area. Now, obviously, up here in where our area, our entire province is under 1 million people. So we're really small. Like, and when I say like 25 clubs in that area, which is to me, I think it's an impressive number, but I don't know, business. When I started in this kind of sport too, you know, it's amazing to see how many people run clubs that aren't really great business people at all.
Which, you know, like I'm one of those people where there's plenty of things that I don't do well. There's
Yeah,
plenty of
me
things
too.
I don't do well.
Yeah.
And so I think half the battle of running a good business is understanding the holes and finding the things you don't do well, and then reaching out for the help to be able to get better at it or hire somebody who is good at it. So that way they can run that side of things. And we spend what? Years and years and years of our life dedicated under one instructor. You know, some people, they bounce around, but most people, we find the organization we like, we find the instructor we like, and we learn from them for years and eventually get our black belt through them. And it's a thing, sometimes decades, sometimes a decade, right? But years of your life is dedicated to learning from this one dude or female, right? But then when it comes to business, right, instead of acknowledging like you did with the martial arts and go, well, I didn't know what I was doing, so I hired somebody to teach me how to do it. You go to business and go, I don't know what I'm doing, but fuck it, I'll figure it out. That's the equivalent of saying, hey, bro, I don't know martial arts, but I'm from the streets. I fight from the street. Yeah, that's the equivalent of saying that in business.
It's funny you say that because men have this, and I don't know if women are the same, I'm not sure, but men definitely have this bravado where it's like, you know, kind of like martial arts where you can't, you know, I know how to fight, but it's like, I know how to run a business. Well, it's like, fuck, no, you don't. Like, no, you don't.
That's okay. It's okay.
It's totally okay. I don't know what I'm doing either. We're like, you know, my business partner, that's his kind of side of thing. Like he's fantastic at running the behind the scenes kind of business. Like he's ran like he's involved in 5 or 6 or whatever he involved in, right? And very, very good at that kind of stuff. And together we make a fantastic team. And that's, you know, you have to surround yourself with good people who can help you in that regard and teach you things. And you have to be vulnerable and open to it, just like how you started this show, man. You have to become full circle. You have to be open to opinions and learning, because if you're not growing.
Yeah, and I have the dumbest job in the world if you think about it. I hope I help people. You know, I call out frauds, fakes, and phonies, but like I had to figure out the job. Like it didn't really exist. There were like little blueprints here and there, but there wasn't anything to make a full picture. You know, and so it was like, hey, you want to do this for a living, huh? And I was like, yep, I kind of do. And then I asked myself, all right, well, how do you do that? I go, I don't fucking know. Like, okay, well, I guess I got a lot of reading to do. And, you know, you just read and you study and you look at people who did it better than you. Mm-hmm. You acknowledge that they did it better than you, and you try to figure out how they did it. And then you do the one thing that most people are terrified to do, especially dudes, right? You just ask for help. You go, hey, man, how the hell did you do that? And 9 times out of 10, the nicest people on the planet will reach back out to you. Like, you'd be amazed. Like, I think that out of 9 out of 10 people that I reach out to that I think would never write me back.
Yeah, I kind of would have to agree with that. It's interesting that you say it, because I would even say 10 out of 10, really. Like, people are very giving with their time and willing to help out the most part. And it's funny, your own psyche, you're like, they wouldn't want to help me. But this world is filled with wonderful, helpful people. It really is, without having to. It's like yourself. Like, I just reached out and I'm like, hey, I'm a fan. I'd love to have you on our podcast. Boom, within seconds. But just to see how quick here you are with 350,000 followers or whatever on Instagram, getting probably shit tons of messages every day, because I know what we get. And if you're on the ball, it just shows. Like when you're reaching back right away, you're like, oh, this guy actually he's really on the ball. And that's how he's become so successful. He cares.
I think step one of being successful in anything is to give a shit. You know?
Yeah.
Like, I'm always blown away by like people who have like a good start, I guess you could say. The people who have the 10,000, the 20,000, the 30,000 followers. And it's not about that. Like, I could give 2 shits less if 250 people or 250,000 people dropped off tomorrow. Yeah. There's over 250,000 people who do not support what you do. If I had 5 people and they were the most supportive people on the planet, that could get you to an upper echelon of a better status in your life. Is 5 people who give a damn. Followers are cool. It's kind of neat where you can look and go, oh, these people follow me. But what good are they?
Exactly.
You know, like, are they doing you any benefit whatsoever? Because I mean, like when people come up, so you can, like, some people pay for their followers, which is the dumbest shit you could ever do. But they'll pay for their followers, right? And when they pay for them, they think they're going to become famous somehow. Like, you paid, like, let's say you had 5 followers and you paid for 5,000. You still really only have 5 followers.
Totally. Yeah,
just because that number changes doesn't mean shit. Then, like, when people go reaching out for sponsorships, they'll be like, hey, man, like, after they buy their followers, they'll be like, hey, man, look at all the followers I have. The first thing that company is going to do is ask you for your statistics. They're going to say, hey, man, well, let's see what your last story posted. Let's see what your last posted. And when they see that only 5 people looked at your thing, they're going to go, oh.
Yeah.
Moving along now.
5,000 bots.
It just doesn't make any sense. Like, I think that you should be in whatever it is that you're doing for the love of whatever it is you're doing. Like, you could die like right in the middle of doing it. And what would you rather have the last memory be? Oh, I fucking hate this job. I can't believe I got to do all this shit. Or would you be like, well, so-and-so reached out. Let's chit chat. Like, if you like what you do, like you're working, but I mean, you're not really working. You're just kind of spending your time doing the thing you do anyway. You just happen to be paid for it.
Yeah, it's true. If you can find that thing, man. Are you doing daily shows now? Like every day?
Man, I work every day, but so every day I do something a little different. So Mondays I go live at 9 a.m. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday I go live at 9 a.m. on Instagram. I let anybody join the live and we talk about absolutely anything. And it's just fun.
It's a great concept.
It's one of those things where it's like I get to talk shop, I get to vent, I get to have my own little therapy session, right? I get to like talk about the things that I want to talk about. And I have the coolest fucking sponsors on the planet because they let me say whatever I want to say without question. They support me 100%. And that's something that I'm truly grateful for is I have people in my corner who are willing to let me be me, you know, because they know that I'm not going to try to misrepresent their brand in some way. And they trust that I'm going to make sure that I say the things in context and say things that if it's my opinion, I will say it is just my opinion. If it's something that I believe, then I say I believe it, but I'm never going to sit there and try to bash for no reason. I'm never going to try to make fun of people for no reason. I try to always make sure that it's entertaining and informative. But also on Mondays, we do a McDojo breakdown. So I take one video or instructor and I kind of break down who that person is and I put it on our YouTube channel. Tuesdays, I do a Technique Tuesday for our YouTube channel where we do I bring in different high-level martial artists to teach legitimate good technique, which is a nice little break from the pace of only dealing with crap.
There's a lot of shit out there, man.
Yeah, man. And then Wednesdays is our McDojo news. So I find a news story that happens in the world, and then I just kind of talk about it or we discuss it on our YouTube. So I do a lot of stuff on YouTube. And then I have a podcast on Fridays, which I'm actually not really even on.
Yes,
I have
I know.
guys that run our podcast for us because I don't have, honestly, no offense, but I just don't have time to run it.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
That's good. That's a good problem to have, though. Like if you can, if you can spread your brand that way too, right? That's the beauty of it, right? You don't need to be on everything. You know?
Yeah, it was never supposed to be about me to begin with. I just happen to be the guy that runs it. I'm the guy that hits the button. Like it's supposed to be a community project.
Yeah.
And so when it comes to like bringing people into the fold, when it comes to getting that help and stuff, I love doing stuff like that. Like if it helps them out and helps me out, let's do it.
Yeah, I agree, man. I think that's the thing. Like, I don't know. To me, I hold a lot of regard in that, like, of helping people. I don't care what your background is. I don't care. I want to see you succeed, whether it's in martial arts, in life, or whatever. So if we can help in any way, shape, or form, I think that's a wonderful thing that more people should do. And you do a lot of it, man. So keep up the positivity. I love that. One final question for you, I guess. Well, you kind of covered a lot of it, but you've done so many interviews, you've spoke to so many people. Who's your favorite? And who's someone that really has kind of left a mark on you through all this?
Man, I got to tell you, like one of the coolest people that I've really been able to talk to, like I got to say everybody I've interviewed has been really, really nice. So I haven't had one interview where I was like, I regret that. But, like Some of the coolest people that I've really had the chance to meet and get to know is like Kenny Florian has been nothing but short of amazing.
Nice.
That dude, he has every reason in the world to just basically have become a douchebag. Like he could be if he wanted to be. You know, he's like, I'm Kenny Florian, but he's not like that. He's the nicest dude on the planet. Like we're doing a documentary in January. We would have already filmed it if it wasn't for COVID. But we're scheduled to do a documentary in January, and he's letting us use his gym to film. Wow. He's gonna he's just super open to ideas and thoughts, and like he doesn't know me from Adam, but like because we've done interviews and because we keep an open dialogue, man, he's just cool like that. Mike Beltran, also super stand-up dude. Like I went to first time I flew out to California, he picked me up. He waited, like my flight was an hour late. He waited in his car an hour in that runway where people have the cars.
Yeah.
You know how bad that sucks. And he picked me up, and he waited the entire. He picked me up. We drove around, brought me out to breakfast. We had a good conversation. Like those are good people, you know. Wow. And you know, even people who like you don't know very well, and you interview, you just kind of get a little deeper sense of who they are. Like Rory McDonald, for instance, like I didn't know how religious he was. I wasn't aware of how much of a family man that he is. And I wasn't aware like a lot of decisions that he's made in his career had nothing to do with what he wanted and had a lot more to do with what he felt would benefit his family. Like that kind of stuff is really cool to hear because I think that a lot of fighters who get the spotlight typically talk about themselves a lot. And when you see somebody and you're interviewing them and most of the conversation is about their family and helping and things for other people. I mean, that's awesome to see. So I love seeing that.
Very cool.
Yeah, but there's, I mean, I have had a great opportunity to be able to speak with some amazing people. And I just feel fortunate for that. I mean, community is amazing. And when it comes together, it can do a beautiful thing. I just wish it would do that more.
Yeah, it's true, man. Well, I agree with that. And like, if anybody isn't following you, you know, they should be, because you put out great content, you put out good positive stuff, but more, like I said earlier, real shit. Like there's no bullshit about it. It's straight, like, and having sponsors like that will back you, man. Like here is a brand, like we do this podcast, but we can't, you know, we voice our opinions pretty openly, but also you have to kind of be a little bit, you know, somewhat quiet on certain things.
Yeah, but I'm sure that I miss out on tons of sponsors because of things that I say. Like, you know, like I cuss quite often. You know, I'm from the South, and that was just kind of how I was raised, and that's just how it comes out. Like, I feel like if I changed to that, I would be changing who I am, and maybe in time I'll naturally do it and progress. Which I already know I cuss way less than I used to, so I feel like maybe I'm becoming more of an adult. But then, you know, like when it comes down to like your personal opinion, certain sponsors don't want you to say certain things. You know, stay away from this topic. Don't talk about this. Don't do this. Don't talk about that. And I think looking at what's happening with like Spotify and Joe Rogan right now is a prime example of a deal was made, which I don't know anything about the deal, so I'm not going to sit here and pretend I do. A deal was made and they let him do his show. And then it seems like afterwards, they seem to be trying to go back and say, oh, we want to be able to censor your content. We want to be able to pick and choose what episodes. We want to be able to even take out segments of things that you say that we don't like. Like, fuck that. I'll say what I want, when I want, how I want it. And if people want to go along for that ride, I appreciate that. I do. And if you don't, I wish you well. And I understand. Like, that's, in my opinion, how I think most of this should work. If people don't like it, there's an X. There's a power button. You can change the channel. You can You can even send me messages and cuss me out. I get death threats all the time. I go live. You can cuss me out to my face, right? I don't care. But you have that right, and I think that's a beautiful right to have that speech, to be able to say the things that are on your mind. Plus, let's be honest. Like, if we censored everybody, how will you be able to spot the douchebags? How can you and you told them they can't say what's on their mind? Like, you can't say that racist word. Well, how am I supposed to know he's a racist?
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
Like, because that's dumb. Well, how do I know he's dumb? Let him talk.
Let him talk.
Yeah,
it weeds them out, man. It weeds them out. It's true. It's very true, man. It's very true. I love that. No better words spoken, my friend. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Rob. It's been a fantastic hour, man. I really appreciate you joining us. Any shout outs you want to give out to your sponsors, or anything you want to say to anybody up here in the Great White North?
Sure, man. Like, thank you for the support, dude. I appreciate you having me on the show. Thank you for the chit chat. I always love talking shop. Real fast sponsors. Thank you to Kill Cliff. Thank you to Freeze Sleeve. Thank you to Knuckle Sammys. And also thank you to Carolina Custom Foam. Appreciate the hell out of all of you guys. If you want to check out any of the stuff that we do, you can find us pretty much anywhere at McDojo Life, except for Reddit, because there was some asshole who made a Reddit thread that says McDojo Life. That's not me. And then when I went to go check on it, they don't answer their emails or anything. So if you want to see us on Reddit, it's the McDojo Life.
So it's just all lower capitals, so isn't it?
It doesn't really matter. Like, you can type it in. If you type in McDojo Life somewhere, usually it's capital M's, then lowercase c, capital D, then capital L. So McDojo Life.
Yeah, okay, I had it close.
It doesn't really matter. It's just habits of how I do it.
That's right. That's right. Well, man, again, thank you so much for joining us. Until next time, keep doing your great things you're doing down there. Keep staying safe in Florida, man. And I'll probably get you back on here in the new year. We'll talk some more shop after that election.
Anytime, dude. I'm down.
All right, buddy. Thanks, Rob. Have a great day.
Have a great day.
There you have it, folks. Check him out at McDojo Life. A great guy, great fan of our show, and we're a great fan of his. Hope everybody's doing great at home. We're going to be dropping our episode tomorrow, another episode as well. We're going to be starting to focus on the upcoming event, Fight League Atlantic Submission Kumite, October 24th, live on pay-per-view. You'll be available to pre-order in the next couple days on our website directly from fightleagueatlantic.com. But yeah, more importantly, we'll be having all the matches, all the athletes that are going to be competing on this show. So we'll bring the matches, once we do the bracket, we'll bring them on 2 by 2, get them talking smack, start to build up these matches. All right, folks. Thanks for tuning in. Again, thanks to our sponsors for this episode, Maritime Madness. Check them out online, maritimemadness.com. Use the code FLA10, save and receive free shipping anywhere in Canada over $35. All right, folks. Have a wonderful day. We'll see you tomorrow. Lots of love.